This meeting will be recorded. In fact, the recording actually started a little while ago, but I'll probably start the replay right at about this point. Our policy is that we record the video on a routine basis and make it available as a replay. It's primarily for the education of our members so they can go back and see their own performance. We may pull bits and pieces of the video or stills to use in our social media marketing, however. So if you object to that, on general principles, you probably don't want to continue with the club. And if you object with it in a specific instance where you did something embarrassing and you want us to destroy the records, let me know. Welcome to Online Presenters. This is a club focused on learning skills for better webinars and online events. I'll ask whoever is typing to mute yourself, please, because that's coming through in the background. We do a series of workshops as education that we share beyond the club and partly use as a recruiting tool. The next one we're doing will be a panel discussion on how to start an online club with Coach Carol McCullough as our moderator. Carol was a coach to this club, helped us get organized when we were getting started. We'll have representation from a number of other clubs as well so that you can get a variety of viewpoints. We want to thank Ring Central for allowing us to use the Ring Central Meetings platform at no charge, which is integrated with some of their other offerings, some of which I'm actually going to be talking about a little bit later in my speech. They do want me to let you know that the cloud is winning in business communications and Ring Central is winning in the cloud. We recommend that you get used to the online meeting environment, use a headset or earbuds, whatever you have available to prevent audio feedback, and mute your mic when it's not your turn. So there's that button in the lower left-hand corner of the screen. You can turn your mic on and off, you can turn your video on and off, but we do want to see who we're meeting with. There are also a couple of different modes to this video tool. You can either go to the gallery view where you see everybody or the speaker view where you see the active speaker. If you are visiting and you decide you're interested in becoming a member, we ask you to attend at least 2 meetings as a guest. We do want you to understand that this is an advanced club. It's not intended for absolute beginners. However, even if you don't meet our minimum membership requirement, we can waive that if you are courageous enough to make a 1 to 2 minute speech about why you want to join and what you can contribute. With that, it is showtime. I'm going to stop the screen sharing, mute myself, and turn this over to Deborah Carr, no relation by the way, who is going to lead us through the meeting as Toastmaster for the day.
Hi everyone, and it's fun to do this tonight. David, you don't know, maybe somewhere along the line we're related, but as we know of, we're not. You know, somebody could have ran between Michigan and Florida quite a few times. You just never know. Anyway, I'm excited to be here. David, I think, set the theme for the day as President's Day, U.S. President's Day, and the word of the day is steward. I can't dig through my screen to get the full amount of it, but it's a verb to manage and look after someone else's properties. So if you'll keep that in mind, to use that throughout the day if you can't, or our time together. And because we have quite a few long, our speeches are going to take a little bit of extra time that we, than we planned on. I'm going to just go right through this. I'm missing something though. What else was I going to say? Oh, we do need a chat monitor. Would anyone like to step up for that? And if not, Jim Dent's going to take it. Jim Dent, you have it. So,
okay.
There he is. He's a chat monitor plus the watcher. Look at him. Anyway, I'd like to start out with the intros. And Graham, you're a general evaluator. If you'll tell us what you're going to do tonight.
Certainly, Madam Toastmaster. My job as General Evaluator is to handle the evaluation segment of the meeting. I will be calling upon each of the evaluators to provide evaluations of the individual speakers. I will then be providing them and those other parts of the meeting which are not evaluated with an evaluation. So essentially, I will be the Toastmaster for the evaluation segment of the meeting.
Thank you. Our grammarian is Andy Byrne.
And I did find my screen.
I'm
I'm the
sorry,
grammarian.
I
and
have a
I'm the
question.
Yes.
I have a question. I thought I signed up for grammarian. Did something happen in the way? Maybe I'm not grammarian. I wrote down grammarian. Okay, never mind. Sorry, Andy. Please continue.
It was open earlier, but
The role of the grammarian is to listen carefully to everybody's speech, see if there are appropriate words being used, inappropriate words, correct grammar, and who is using the word of the day, which is steward. And I believe someone just defined steward.
our
I'll give
timer
my
is,
report later on.
and our timer is George Marshall. George, are you ready to time?
I am ready to time, and I'm going to be using official timing cards. Greens, yellows, and you guessed it, a red at the appropriate time.
Thank you. And our watcher, Jim Dent, incognito.
I figured I'd play the role tonight as watcher, and every bright face I see, every gesture you make, every eye contact you make, every breath you take, I'll be watching you.
Thank you. Our vote counter is Monica. Did she? And Monica isn't here. I thought she did sign it, but maybe she didn't. Carol, would you mind taking? Thank you. So everyone will just send their, excuse me, send their votes to Carol later on. And our chat monitor, how did I do that? Chat monitor is Jim Dent again.
Hey, I'm also chat monitor tonight. I'm gonna have to do without the sunglasses because I won't be able to read with the sunglasses on. So I'll be watching the chats for any special chat topics that need to be passed on or discussed. It's already been quite active already.
Good.
Deborah, back to you.
Okay. We have 3 speakers tonight, and we're starting out, as soon as I find my sheet, with Norman Dow as our first speaker. He's working on the storytelling manual, number 5, Bringing History to Life. The title is The Other National Anthem. The Star Spangled Banner has been in the news, from the NFL players to people examining at all of its verses, and it's been discussed more recently than ever. However, another national anthem that most Americans have never, there is another national anthem that most Americans have never heard of. Tonight, Norman Dow will talk about his anthem's history. Help me welcome Norman Dow. I'm sorry, and I should say the time is 9 minutes. Norman asked for 9 minutes.
Is there a range, 7, 8, 9, or what?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Let's go. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Good.
Oh.
I'm not seeing the screen yet,
Yeah, we
Norman.
can see you, not the screen itself.
Hold it 1 second then. My apologies. Share screen. Oh, here we are. How's that?
Yes.
Good. And let's go. It was the night of the first presidential debate between Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton. There was a town meeting held at the iconic Apollo Theater after the debate to discuss the debate. There were a number of luminaries, the editor from the Conservative Watch, the editor from the Black Enterprise, a columnist from Univision there to discuss this debate that had just occurred out at Hofstra University on Long Island. The festivities started with the Star-Spangled Banner. Most people stood, some sung along, but generally people were trying to just get through the beginning to get to the real meat of the hour, to get to the real event, the discussion of the debate. But then after the Star-Spangled Banner was over, another song started. A wave of emotion flooded through the Apollo Theater. All women were crying. People all over the theater were holding up their video cameras, ignoring the rules that you cannot record at a live event at the Apollo. When it was all over, there were people that were confused in the audience. The Black folk had reacted emotionally. The Asians and Hispanics and white folk were wondering what had happened. What had happened was Carissa, the violin diva, by the way, my daughter, had just played the Black national anthem. What is this song? Well, it started back in 1900. On Lincoln's birthday, and this is President's Day, Booker T. Washington, the most famous African American of that time, the founder and president of Tuskegee University, was visiting Jacksonville, Florida. The principal of the host school, James Weldon Johnson, decided to write a song for the occasion. He was a poet. His brother was a musician. He wrote the lyrics. His brother actually wrote the song. That day, 500 young people sang the song. It was a stirring rendition. It was a fantastic success. James and his brother, Rosalind, they believed their work was done, and soon afterwards they moved to New York. But using modern day parlance, the song went viral. It started spreading from person to person to person in church groups, in schools, in community gatherings all over the United States. The song was sung over and over and over again. It actually is quite a stirring poem. Let me read it. Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring. Ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening sky. Let it resound loud as the listening skies. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of our new day begun, let us march on till victory is won. Stony the road we trod, bitter the chastening rod. Felt in the days when hope unborn had died, yet with a steady beat, have not our weary feet come to the place for which our fathers sighed. We have come over a way that with tears has been watered. We have come treading our path through the blood of the slaughtered. Out of the gloomy past, till now we stand at last, where the white gleam of our bright star is cast. God of our weary years, God of our silent tears, thou who hast brought us thus far on the way, Thou who hast by thy might led us into the light, keep us forever in the path, we pray. Lest our feet stray from the places, our God, where we met thee. Lest our hearts, drunk with the wine of the world, we forget thee. Shadow beneath thy hand, may we forever stand, true to our God, true to our native land. For over a century, the song has resonated with African Americans. In 1919, the NAACP adopted it as the Negro National Anthem. It's never had an official government-oriented or ordained adoption, but it's become part of the Black culture with the United States. In 1969, I was playing sax in the Hampton University Marching Band. I recall playing at Howard's Homecoming, and we didn't play the Star Spangled Banner. We played Lift Every Voice and Sing. At the end of Reverend Joseph Lowery's message at Barack Obama's inauguration, he recited, almost verbatim, Lift Every Voice and Sing. It was sung at the opening of the African American History Museum. And most interesting, perhaps, when Richard Spencer actually spoke as a white racist at the University of Florida back in October, the University of Florida played Lift Every Voice and Sing on the carillon. And to end this speech, I would like to give you the finale of Carissa the Violin Diva performing at the Apollo. Madam Toastmaster.
Is Deborah on the call?
I think we seem to have lost Deborah.
Okay, why don't we move on to the next speaker? Our next
That would be a great idea.
Our next speaker, hold on, I have it open. Our next speaker is David Carr. He's speaking from the Competent Communicator, project number 8, Get Comfortable with Visual Aids. He's going to use GLIP productively, 5 to 7 minute webinar example, and he's going to be showing us some chat feature that he wants us to use, if I remember correctly, in the emails that we saw this afternoon. The time for the speech is 7 minutes. And with that, and I don't have any other intro in front of me, David. Thank you.
I do if you'd like me to do it.
Oh, Graham, go ahead, add some more.
Ring Central GLIP team messaging and collaboration is a modern and mobile online platform for collaboration within your business. Online Presenters President David Carr, a consultant to Ring Central and the author of Social Collaboration for Dummies, is going to present a quick demo and overview. And in the process, he will demonstrate the proposed format for the club's mini webinar contest on April 16. So how to use GLIP productively, a 5 to 8 minute webinar example. Ladies and gentlemen, will you please welcome President David Carr.
Hey, well done. Well done, and thanks everybody for bouncing back when things went wrong. This is going to be a quick demo and overview of Ring Central GLIP and how you might use it within your business or your nonprofit activities, including within a Toastmasters club. And so I think most of you have actually gotten an invitation to GLIP, to a GLIP space that we'd set up called Members of Online Presenters. So the idea here is that we can have conversations with a group of people or with a single individual that are focused on a specific topic. If I look at the one-on-one conversation with David Carr, because I'm not logged in here as David, I'm logged in here as Joe Henderson, who's the CEO of Strategic Vision LLC, an advisory firm that writes papers and puts on events. And we have some teams here for the spring conference and for research publications. But in this one-on-one conversation with this guy, David Carr, we can see that he really wants us to read the Social Collaboration for Dummies book. Even though it's a little bit outdated, Social Collaboration for Dummies was talking about how products like Yammer, which was bought by Microsoft, adapted conventions from social media for use within organizations. Well, these days, Yammer is not necessarily the one to beat. The one to beat is Slack. So we wind up, whether we want to or not, often explaining GLIP by saying, well, it's a little bit like Slack, only different, only better. So Slack is out there. It's a very well-funded and well-publicized startup. GLIP has sort of the same metaphor for how you would communicate with somebody. It's based on messaging back and forth. So messaging versus social sharing makes a little bit of a difference. And you usually communicate in short, chatty messages, which to some extent discourage people from being long-winded, which is kind of a good thing. You can either just post a message, or you can also post a task, which is a way of setting definite expectations, like get this done by Friday, and let's assign it to David and put in a due date so that we can hold him accountable. And the way this is set up, I can actually, as David receiving that task, I can check it off when it's done. I could even change my own due date, except that there's an audit trail so you can see if I am postponing things, if I'm stalling for time. So I can be held accountable. There is the idea. Now, one of the things that makes this environment interesting to RingCentral, which is best known as a company that offers internet-based phone service, is you can also have integration with calling from this environment. So I can actually make a call directly through my web browser or the RingCentral desktop application. I can have that same app on my phone. Or I can start a video meeting just like the one we're in. It's a little bit challenging to demonstrate a video meeting from inside a video meeting, but I did come up with a little animated scenario to try and show you how that would work. I can be in this meeting and I'm texting back and forth with somebody, and up pops this little ringing animation saying, do you want to join a meeting? And ta-da, just like that, we're in a video meeting. So the idea is that we can move back and forth between texting and talking in real time, or sharing a screen, which is often useful in the context of work, where you have something specific that you want to show somebody else. And I can demonstrate, however, calling. So I'm going to try and call David. And if I hold up my phone, we should see that David's getting a message coming in, and I'm going to turn that down rather than suffer through audio feedback problems. But we can see that we also have the team messaging environment on the phone. So I've been asking you to plug some questions into the chat as we go along. I see I'm at green already. And so Andy Byrne sent me a message saying that in Slack there are private channels. Can you have that in GLIP? It's something similar. I mean, part of the idea is that I can be chatting along and I can be talking to a whole group of people, but when I specifically want to get somebody's attention, I can @mention that person, say, hey. And when you're mentioned in a conversation, you actually get a notification. You can set it up so that you get email notifications if you don't happen to be logged in at that moment. So it's a way of allowing everybody who's involved in that team to see what's going on, but you can give somebody specific a shout out. Let's say I see a new message. Is GLIP available for Ring Central users or is it standalone? It's actually both. So there's a free version and their free license is pretty generous. The only thing that's actually limited is the amount that you can use the video meetings feature. But they have an unlimited number of coworkers you can invite in and an unlimited number of files that you can share. The main limitation is that video feature and possibly some other administrative features that you might like to have. So I will need to wrap this up in just a moment. I'm going to scroll back to see if there are other questions that have popped in. Seeing none at the moment, I'm going to wrap up. And if you have other questions, please post them in the chat or send them to me privately. I'm happy to talk about this more. Thank you, Madam Toastmaster of the Day.
Is Deborah back on yet?
I don't see Deborah back, so as General Evaluator, I'll continue if that is in...
You go for it.
All right. All right. Our third speaker today is Scott Johnson. Now, Scott is presenting a speech from the Dynamic Leadership Level 2, Learning Your Style, which is understanding your leadership style. Now, Scott has a speech. The purpose of this presentation is for Scott to identify his primary leadership style or styles and to identify and share some aspects of that style. The style can be humorous, it can be informative, it can be any style the member chooses. And so Scott's speech today is, as I say, from that Dynamic Leadership Level 2. So this is a Pathways project for those members of districts which aren't yet in Pathways. You'll get to see how it is done. And do I have a title for Scott's speech? No, in fact, I do not. So, ladies and gentlemen, without a title, let's introduce Scott Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator. Have you ever wondered what leadership style you possess and what impact that may have on individuals around you? I've always wondered about this, and it's plagued me for quite a while. Ever since I have been in the position of being an influencer and a steward, I have been told that most leaders, or in fact all leaders, have different leadership styles. And in fact, they have 5 attributes that go towards their leadership style. And the first one is an effective communicator. An effective communicator and also an effective listener and conflict resolution person as such. Lead by example. You can always tell an individual to do something, but it's much more worthy to show them how to do it or lead by example. If you're not willing to do something, why should they? The next one is being optimistic, being have a positive mindset and an attitude, a positive demeanor, which always enables you to perform your task a little bit better. Being open-minded, not set on what you think you know everything. You should be open-minded to not be biased and also take in information from individuals to better integrate into a situation. demonstrate integrity. How important is integrity? It not only gives you trust and helps you in relationships, it acknowledges other people and you give credit to them. Now, part of this presentation or part of this project, I was given a 48 question survey to do to determine what my leadership styles might be. Funny enough, there is 8 leadership styles, and they are coaching, pace setting, altruistic, authoritative, affiliative, democratic, bureaucratic, and innovative. Surprisingly, I was spread all over 8 of them, but I did have 2 primary ones, and they were coaching and pace setting. Now, for coaching, the attributes of a coach is to concentrate or prepare individuals for building their skills. For a leadership that excels with individuals or groups that don't realise their potential. A leader that communicates positive statements to foster a high level of personal gratification. The style is most effective if it is one-on-one, but it also goes towards somebody that is on a coaching style themselves. The style is less effective for people that obviously don't like change. My pace setting is basically the leader expecting those to lead to embrace my projects with speed. The leader can motivate, focus on productivity, does not feel it necessary to communicate a lot of detailed instructions. The style can be obviously ineffective if it's used over a long period of time. The style is effective when members are self-motivated. They are my top 2 primary ones, but you can probably appreciate your leadership style is not 1 or 2. It can be filtered right through these ones. And it's always important to use the other styles in leadership to coerce with your individuals. It's no use just having your own set of style. We don't have individual styles like we don't have individual personalities. If we do these personality tests, you'll find that you're not just one dominant personality. You have varied and many. So with leadership styles, it's exactly the same. I will just go quickly through because I know I'm really strung for time. Bureaucratic leaders strictly establish and enforce rules. Leaders' decisions are absolute. Maybe you're that style. The authority of the leader motivates by inspiring enthusiasm for a mission. The leader gives clear direction and sets standards. Innovative leaders encourage innovative ideas. Democratic is the leader that's comfortable allowing others to occasionally take the lead. The leader motivates by providing opportunities to participants. The affiliative is the leader. Objective is to create a cohesive unit by emphasizing teamwork and harmony. The leader motivates by creating positive personal relations and avoids conflicts. Altruistic is the leader leads in order to better solve others. Now, through this presentation, I no longer need to wonder because my questions have been answered. I now know what my attributes are as a leader. I also know what the different leadership styles are. And while my primary is in coaching and pace setting, I now understand the different styles of leadership. And in future, I will try to use the ones that scored lower on my questionnaire to be a more effective and prominent leader. And by these leadership skills, I would be more effective in encouraging people to be better leaders and be effective and to work in a a more adept community Mr. Toastmaster, Mr. General Evaluator.
That's all. Thank you, Scott. And I believe that we can now yield control once again back to our Toastmaster for the day, because Deborah has rejoined us. Welcome back, Deborah. To err is human, to really foul things up requires a computer, and yeah, we understand how these things happen. So, are you back with us? You're still muted. No, you're right.
I hope I'm here to stay this time. We never know. My computer just shut right down. So anyway, since Scott just spoke, that means that we are ready for, if everyone would send their vote in for best speaker to Carol Perinsky. I'm sorry, to Carol for best speaker. And then we're going to move right into table topics. And our topic master is, and I don't have it, who is our topic master tonight?
Christian.
There you are. Christian, are you ready?
I'm ready, Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you
so much for handing me the baton. Ladies and gentlemen, table topics segment is at times the most awaited session, at times the most feared segment of Toastmasters meeting. Let's see how it goes for our participants tonight. So I'm going to set the first question in line with our theme of the day. Here goes. If you could spend a day with a past US president, who would it be and why? I repeat the question. If you could spend a day with a past US president, who would it be and why? And the question goes to Carol Prahinsky. Please unmute yourself. Thank you.
I was counting votes. I apologize. If I could spend a day with the U.S. president, you said, or any president in the world?
With the past U.S. president.
All right. Past U.S. president, Barack Obama. He's recent. I'd spend it with him. He's still alive. Can I say it like that? Well, I think he would be absolutely fascinating to spend some time with. He's an interesting man. I might ask him what it was like to sit for his recent portrait that is now hanging in the National Gallery of Art. National Gallery of Art. I might ask him what it's like to lead our country and deal with the negative backlash of you name it, that always comes to our presidents. They have so much negativity that directed to them and their families. It must be really challenging. And yet they're able to survive and look happy and be happy and be able to handle that. One of the things with leadership is we don't always make a decision that everybody else is comfortable with. And being able to handle and communicate effectively to get our message across, I think Barack Obama has communicated effectively and gotten his message across in so many ways. So I would like to spend some time with him. Thank you so much, Christian.
Thank you, Toastmaster Carol. Thank you so much. The second question of the table topic segment is as follows. Listen well, it's quite long. You have been nominated as presidential candidate for the next US presidency elections. You are to give your first speech to your direct team. Give the speech now. I repeat the question. You have been nominated as presidential candidate for the next US presidency elections. You are to give your first speech to your direct team. Give the speech now. And this goes to Mr. Rolando Goldman. Over to you, sir.
So, table topic masters, fellow Toastmasters, and most welcome guests, have been nominated to be a candidate for president. And even though I'm not a politician, I have to do my best to motivate my team. Thank you for nominating me for being president. I'm gonna do my best not to disappoint you guys. And let's go and win the presidency. Because at this time, we need to save the country from whatever's going on right now. Because if you guys want to avoid a nuclear war or save the future of the country, you got to help elect me so I can go save the country. Please talk to your friends, whoever you know, your co-workers, your family members. Let's get everyone on board. They need our help. We need to do the best we can so I can be the next president of the United States, so I can unite the country and move the country forward. Mr. Table Topic Master.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Madam Toastmaster, may I set a third question, or we are limited by time? Yes, we can. Thank you. And here's the third question. You have just been elected as President of the United States. What is the first change that you would bring about? I repeat, you have just been elected as President of the United States. What is the first change that you would bring about? And this question goes to none other than Mr. Reed Porter. Over to you, sir. Please unmute yourself. Thank you.
All right. Mr. Table Topics Master, Toastmasters. Well, it's the first thing I would do as a new president. Oh, it would be something silly, I'm sure. Make everybody drive on the other side of the road. Yeah, I think I'd switch off driving to left to right. So just keep everybody busy for a couple of months while I figure out what's going on. That, or I don't know. Maybe make all the congressmen talk like Jimmy Stewart. That's even better. I don't know. I've never wanted to be president. That's Mr. Table Topics Master.
Thank you, Mr. Reed. Short but sweet. Direct to the point. This brings us to the end of the Table Topics segment. I would like to remind our members to vote for the best Table Topics participant. I will put the names in the chat. I would also like to request our timer to put their timing in the chat as well. Thank you so much. Over to you, Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you so much. I'm glad that you mentioned the timing on when I jumped in like I did with the speakers, I forgot to mention that. So thank you, George, for posting all the times that we need to. So it's time for our evaluations. Are we ready? Are we ready? And we have Roger. Are you ready for your evaluation for George?
Yes, Madam Toastmaster, I am ready.
Thank you.
Thank you, Norman, for your speech. You always bring something historical, informative, and I'm sure I'm not the only one that would say that every time listening to your speech, we already learned something. 3 things really stood out in your speech. First is your opening. In the beginning, I thought your voice were a little too calm, too low, and I was wondering what's going on. You're telling a story, but yet as you continue to speak, you start to build up and you build up, and then you got to the point where you showed us or shared with us what happened in Apollo, and I thought, oh, that's what he's doing. He's making that contrast, and boom, you brought me right into your story. So great opening. Number 2, your slides were completely clear. I love that black and white. There's not a lot of fancy things, but it makes it very clear. I can read the lyrics line by line. I thought it was perfect in terms of how much you have on each screen, especially for an online speech. If this would have been at an auditorium of some sort, you might want to change that, but for an online presentation, I thought the total amount of items on each screen and the color contrast were perfect. Third, You had a number of historical points as you brought us into the story. You didn't dwell on any one of them. You gave us just enough to keep our interest, and you moved to the next and moved to the next point and the next point. Those three things really stood out for me, brought a lot of interest, and brought me along into the story. One suggestion that I do like to give to you is your closing. Your closing in terms of your call to action. You gave us toward the end the beautiful video of your daughter playing, even though the technical side of it may not play out everything, that's perfectly fine. But when you end it with that, I'm not too sure what you want me to do with this. I'm not too sure what you want me to do with your story. Give me something. I remember George had the greens on. That means you haven't got to the yellow yet. So you have at least a minute and a half. You can give a call to action. Maybe how this story, how the anthem impacted your life. Maybe how you want me to, what do you want me to do with it? You want me to learn it? You want to click? You want me to start singing along with you? One way or the other, I felt you could have closed it a little bit better with that call to action. With that change, I think you've got a slam dunk. You have a great opening, build up the interest. You had clear slides in the middle in your body. You have historical points that is not just fluff. Add a little change to that closing, and I think you've got a well-rounded speech. Thank you, Norman. And thank you, Madam Toastmaster.
Moving on, we have Adrienne, and you evaluated David. What a goofy night tonight for me. Anyway, are you ready, Adrienne? Right on mute.
Yeah. Can you hear me? Okay, perfect. David, this presentation was a great one because you were very familiar with the product and the software that you were explaining to us. The objectives of the speech were to select visual aids that were appropriate for your message and the audience, to use visual aids correctly with ease and confidence, and of course, you met those objectives in this speech. What I love the most about it is you knew what you were doing. Man, you flew through those screens, you were moving so fast, you knew where everything was. It was great to see how efficient you are in technology. The fact that you actually set it up as a trial account so we can actually see the members of the team and how to correspond with them through either video, the phone chat, I thought was fabulous. I thought it was a great presentation. This was a great speech to incorporate that into because we're talking about how you can incorporate visual aids into your speech. I thought you did a great job of that. In your introduction, I thought it was great. You just kind of got online and went right into it. Some of the things that I think you could have done a little bit better was give us some background on this software. Why do we need it? What is the reason for it? Is it giving us better productivity for our staff or for our team? Is this a new way to do an online group to-do list? Is this going to reduce my number of emails? And for small business, is this the better video meetings that we need to have versus Zoom? I wasn't really sure what the difference was with the Zoom and the Ring Central and when they incorporate the video part of it through the software. I wasn't sure what the differences was what was the difference with those things. I didn't understand how I could benefit from that as a user. There were some questions about Slack versus Glip, so some other people were trying to figure out the contrast of the two. I am familiar with Slack. One of my groups use it, and I do love those private channels because it allows you to segregate your content into something different, like if we are a group that want to do social events for movies, or if we're a group that we want to talk about politics, we can create channels for that. And I wasn't sure if Glip was able to do that. Some of the other things that was really effective in your presentation was when you actually did a live feature of the program. You actually showed us how it was going to work. You dialed the number, we saw the call go through, you tried to show us on the phone, but you moved it a little too fast, so we weren't able to see that part with the notification. But that was really effective. Actual live feature of the software that we could see was great. it felt a little bit rushed because there was a lot of content in a short period of time. So I think if we reduce the points to maybe 2 or 3, then you had more time to go into detail on those 2 or 3 points. In closing, I think it would have been great to let us know about the main reasons. I'm sorry, in closing, it would have been great for you to tell us your main reasons of why you love this software. And that would have made us fall in love with this software too. You did a great job of telling us that we need it. It does make me want to look more into upgrading my account to see what other features I can incorporate. You did a great job with that. Thank you so much, General Evaluator.
And Lois, you evaluated Scott tonight. Are you ready?
I am, Madam Toastmaster.
Go.
My fellow Toastmasters, most welcome guests, and especially Scott. Wow, this is a really interesting speech. It was so awesome. 48 questions. You learned all about your leadership styles. I'm like, sign me up. I want pathways. This is actually a speech that would tell people how strong Pathways is and what it can do for you. And I found that absolutely mesmerizing. You did some things really well. You knew your topic. You knew who you were. Good job. Yay. You gave us leading by example, influencer and steward for the grammarian, effective communicator, optimistic, you have integrity. These are all wonderful attributes that you applied to yourself, and you made sure that we understood it as we were going through. What were some of the things you did really well? You understood your topic. You knew exactly where you were going and how you were going to get there. What are some of the things you could do to improve just a little bit? Well, let's start with a title. Let's start with a grabber. Are you a leader? Do you know what kind of leader you are? Wow, I have a great way to tell you what kind of a leader you are. I thought this particular speech lent itself to a PowerPoint presentation. You had so much that you really didn't meet the objective, because the objective was to go through some aspect of leadership. And I thought you went through so many things that I was kind of flying over going, okay, is that an attribute? Is that a style? What are we going through here? Perhaps if you had had it on a PowerPoint presentation, we could have understood a little bit better. These are your attributes. These are your styles. These are the 8 scenarios. And that would have given me a little more understanding, because I couldn't write that fast. There was so much going on, and I'm writing away, and I'm writing away. And I'm going, okay, now was that the attribute? Was that the style? And I'm not a bureaucrat. I'm a Democrat. Am I altruistic? Okay, let's go back to I'm optimistic. I got that one. So I did get kind of confused in the way that it was going through, and I would have appreciated, I think, somewhere to have that PowerPoint presentation. I would love to see this speech again with less scenarios and more meat in it, and a PowerPoint presentation to walk us through, especially those of us that are visual learners. I think this speech would have lent itself to a visual speech. But congratulations on finding out that you are a coach and a pace setter. I cannot wait to take this course, because it sounds like it is just going to be so much fun. And your call to action was very nice, that you are going to be learning different leadership styles. But I would have liked if you had just challenged me and said, what kind of leader are you? And are there other leadership styles you should be seeking? Great job, Scott. I enjoyed it. I really hope you do it again in smaller pieces. Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you so much, Lois. George, if you will post the time in there, and then we can go ahead and vote on the evaluations. So, Graham, the general evaluator, would you like to bring up your team and get the evaluations?
Thank you. Thank you, Madam. Oh, hang on. I'm on. Yes, I am on. Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. And thank you for being flexible tonight, which is something that we all require. Let's take a look at first the participants in the other roles. I'll get to the evaluations in just a moment. The grammarian tonight. And tonight's grammarian was, for this role changed, that would be, who was that grammarian? Hands up, please. That was Andy Byrne. Andy, if you can give us a report on how many people stewarded us well tonight, or used good language, or whatever.
Okay, Graham. There were 3 people that used the word Stuart, Lois, Scott, and myself. There was a lot of interesting words, and I have to say hats off to Scott Johnston, because in his speech he used so many interesting words that we should all be aware of. And I don't want to leave out Norman, who made us aware of Lift Every Voice and Sing. I'm going to definitely look that up and listen on YouTube to the presentation. But I have to say, in Scott's presentation, we covered words such as leadership style, attribution style, effective leadership, lead by example, opportunistic, positive mind, integrity, algorithms, innovative, excels, high level of gratification, prominent, and the table topics.
We're going to have to make
we're having
brief
more
if we can,
time.
Andy. Yeah.
Okay. Let me end right here.
Yep. All right, Andy, thank you for that. And I'm sorry, I should have mentioned that because we are running out of time, if we can ask for 30 seconds from each of these reports. Our watcher tonight, what do we call you? Yes, the watcher. Jimmy, sneaky character. What have we got?
Okay, I'm sorry about that. Yes, watching tonight. I can't read with these sunglasses on. Norman, your blue background was great. And when you talked, you were slightly off center. That was very good. Other times you were more off center. I thought that was a good background, a good facial framing and size. David, when you were giving your presentation, there were several times, I don't know if the frame froze, but you were looking up over here to the side. I don't know if you had another monitor you were watching or what it was. But it kind of looked like you weren't looking at the audience.
Gonna have to leave you
let's
there.
see.
Yep.
Yeah, and it just got Scott. Scott was good. I didn't see anything significant. There was a few people with bright faces. Coach Carol, and also Carol P had quite some strong reflections in her glasses. Back to you.
Thank you, Jimmy. Those are things that we should watch for. Now, our R counter tonight was Mike Walsh from Ontario, Canada. Mike, what do we got?
Yeah, Mr. General Evaluator, we certainly like the word "and" to begin a sentence with. We use that conspicuously about 19 times. And so is a really close runner-up as well. For our speakers, we did very well. And I was about to criticize David about all of the kind of startup words, you know, that so and that we put at the beginning of our sentences. However, I noticed that he used such a variety of those words, I couldn't possibly criticize him for doing that. I have something like 9 different starter words, and I mean, that's, you know, that takes talent. So I certainly learned a lot about doing that. So thank you, David. And
thank you, Mike.
General Evaluator.
Thank you, Mike. And an entertaining R counter report. George, you've been frantically waving badges and banners and cards. How did we go for timing tonight? Ignoring this last little bit. You're still muted.
As I posted before, our speakers were all within their times. Norman at 7:45, David at 7:15, Scott at 6:48. Table topics, still on, well, most on time. Carol P. at 1:29, Rolando at 1:20. Reed was under at 45 seconds. And evaluations tended to word long. Roger at 3, Adrian at 3:29, and Lois at 3:06.
Thank you very much, George, and thank you for stepping in and doing that. Now, we are running quite behind time, so I will go through the general evaluation briefly. First up, the topics master, Christian. One observation I would make for Christian is that we had a short time and some very long questions. Bear that in mind. Keep them short, sharp, and shiny. However, they were some good questions. Carol was busy, but still managed to pick up on the question, despite the fact that she was doing something else when she was asked. Rolando had a slow start, but then moved into a really good motivational presentation. Well done, Rolando. Congratulations on that. And Reed didn't know where he was or what he was doing, but he was brutally honest and said, I never wanted to be president in the first place. I wish that were the case with more politicians. Roger's evaluation tonight gave us point, and praise for the simple slides. I commend you on doing that. Skimmed past the technical and audio issues. One suggestion I would make for Norman is go back and watch the video. You will discover that the audio of your daughter's playing was actually not good. And that was unfortunate because that was, I think, one of the highlights of your speech, or at least was intended to be. So bear that in mind when you're giving online presentations. If you're playing audio from a separate source, it can be an issue. Adrienne's evaluation outlined the objectives, talked about them. I love Adrienne's enthusiasm. There is no better word for it. She also pointed to David's preparation, which I thought was one of the highlights of his speech, and I commend you for drawing our attention to that, and also pointing to the specifics which David needed to improve his speech. Lois's evaluation, talking of enthusiasm, oh, and crikey. She pointed to the pluses and minuses and also gave us some really good specific advice about, for example, using a PowerPoint to reduce the overload which Scott's speech contained. I would mention this about Lois's speech, and Lois, I say this not just for you, but for everybody here tonight. All of Lois's speech was in the first person. My personal feeling is that an evaluation should be delivered primarily to the speaker, as I'm doing now with you, but it should also be a teaching moment for everybody else. And so switch from the first to the third person occasionally. I tend to praise openly, and then if I'm making a specific point for improvement, I will address that to the speaker individually. But having said all of that, one last thing I will have to say about the meeting. This was all over the place like a dog's breakfast. It's an Australian phrase, and we picked it up and ran with it really well. When the Toastmaster, Deborah, dropped off, and she was doing a terrific job and continued to do a terrific job when she came back, but when Deborah disappeared, first I believe it was Carol who picked up, and then I, as general evaluator, because I had other notes, we just picked up and ran with it, and that's a good Toastmasters meeting. When things go wrong, pick it up, just run with it, don't panic. I thought it was a great meeting. I enjoyed myself. I will leave it to the president to call on the guests if they wish to make comments, and on that note, I will in fact, because according to this agenda, that's what I'm supposed to do, I will now yield control to our president to close the meeting. So, ladies and gentlemen, David Carr.
Deborah, did you want to make a final comment too?
A couple different things. First of all, we didn't get the votes. We don't know, who took what places. Secondly, thank you everyone for stepping up as you did before the meeting, and then when I dropped out of sight, for taking over. It was just a great movie. A great meeting. I'm still wound up from that shutting down. Thanks so much, everyone.
All right, we are a little bit past the top of the hour. If anybody needs to go, of course you can. But meanwhile, Carol Prahinsky, what were our rankings?
Results of the contest, if we call it a contest. Norman wins with the best speech tonight. Carol, with the independent vote counter by Christian, thank you very much, wins on the table topics. And Lois, again, wins at the evaluation. So first person seems to work. Cheers.
All right. And we always want to take a few moments to hear back from our visitors. Reed, can you give us a little bit of feedback?
Sure. I had a great time. This is my first visit here. I'll definitely visit again. And like you said, it was a hot mess, but you pulled it through. So.
That's a good description of many of our meetings. Terry Ann.
At our local club, our theme is plan to the nth degree and then wing it. You guys do it very well. I enjoyed this. I look forward to being back.
All right, terrific. Great motto. Dozen?
Yeah, thank you. I really enjoyed myself tonight. It's I actually did give a presentation when I was finishing up on one of my speeches about online club. Little did I know that I would actually leave this out. So I'll be sharing this tonight's experience with my own club to say, hey, what I shared with you some other time that looked like a fairy tale is actually happening.
All right, excellent.
Thank you.
And we should hear from Coach Carroll as well, because she's no stranger to us, but maybe you can give us a little bit of a preview of what we have in store for next week.
Thank you, David. First, let me say how I was entertained so well tonight, and you might have missed in the chat the new expression for GLIP by Carol Prahinsky, which is Gabby, lovely internet people. A little bit of a preview for next week's show.
Is that trademarked, Carol? Can I share that with them? Or okay.
Not sure about that, David. It was a lot of fun. And next week, I hope to make a lot of fun also for our panelists, of whom David will be one, and 5 others are going to come along and join me. I'm trying to do it in a different style, and a lot of leadership style would come into it, but also some provocateur. So be on the lookout for those what ifs and very different questions. We're, of course, looking at how to start an online club. So if people are interested, come along and join in. You will be given an opportunity to ask a question as an attendee. Thanks, David.
Okay. And also I should mention that the agenda for next week is simplified to just focus on that panel discussion. I haven't signed people up for other roles, but Carol, do you want us to assign a timer? Are there any other support roles that would be helpful?
Absolutely. Thank you for asking. I would indeed love to have a timer, because we will try and keep a lot of the responses from the panelists neat and clipped. And it would be useful also to have a brief introduction. So a Toastmaster of the day would help me, and that gives that intro and handing back.
Yeah, I've assigned myself to do the introduction duties, but do we have a volunteer to be a timer for next week? Roger is raising his hands. Roger, it's yours. All right, well, I think we can say goodnight to everybody, and thank you so much for joining me for this master class on how to say ah, and and so. And we'll be back with another one next week.